I'm Dr. Deb Butler, and you are listening to Thinner Peace in Menopause and Beyond. This is episode number 413. Welcome to Thinner Peace in Menopause and Beyond. This is Dr. Deb Butler, Master Life and Weight Coach, and as always, your coach. If you're a woman and you're smart and you're successful and you've been struggling with weight your whole life, and now menopause is making it harder than ever, and you are ready to make this the last time you ever have to go on a diet again, then this podcast is for you. Stay tuned. Well, hello, all my dear friends all over the world. It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, and I hope it's the same for you too. And today, what I want to talk to you about is this, because this is what I hear a lot with my individual clients, with my group clients, is the frustration of when the scale doesn't do what you want it to do. And I know I have done podcasts on this, but I think I have a different way of looking at it. And I'm hoping it may help you too, because frustration, that feeling that we create when we think something is not going right, or we're throwing a tantrum because the scale's not doing something when we think we are, being able to control that feeling by thinking what we decide to think about the scale is probably one of the best things that you can ever get from working with me. Because if you can become more peaceful around the scale, then when it gives you numbers, you can look at it with curiosity and then become a detective in terms of your own work. But you can only do that if you're curious. If you're frustrated, what may happen, or what I see happen, or what certainly has happened to me, is I get frustrated, and then what I do is I want to reward myself, or maybe you want to reward yourself with food, especially when you're not hungry, because you think that you're working so hard and being so good, and the scale is not acknowledging you. So therefore, you're going to eat when you're not hungry, as if that's the best gift that you can give yourself. That's what comes from being frustrated. That's why it's not a great feeling. And when you get on that scale, frustration is the last feeling that you want to feel. But if you notice that you feel it, sometimes it's okay to just process it, let it go through, let it feel what it feels like, and then learn to manage your mind. But managing your mind around the scale, I have said it many times, and I'm going to say it today, is so important. It's probably the best skill that I can ever teach you. Now, what I want to talk about today is the weight loss wins that you have, that my clients have, that have nothing to do with the scale. Because this is the thing. Sometimes if the scale isn't reporting weight loss, that doesn't mean that you're not doing things that are going to create weight loss over time. And if you don't give yourself credit for those things because the scale says, no, not today, then frustration is going to be easy to come in. And when frustration is there, you staying connected to yourself becomes harder. Curiosity is the key. And I think the best way to be curious when the scale's not reporting what you want is to be able to look at your own behavior over the last week, over the last day, however you want to look at it, and see what your wins are anyway. So I want to give you some examples of what could be weight loss wins, even though the scale isn't reporting the weight loss, but you're doing behavior that will create weight loss. So if we know that behavior will, at some point, we really have to concentrate on what that behavior is and repeat it more often, and not throw it all out the window because the scale didn't give a good report card. I think that's the way to look at it, is that, if the scale says one thing and it goes down, then you think, okay, But if it goes up, oh no. If it stays the same and your behavior was magnificent and you did all the things and it didn't report a weight loss, this is when your mind has to go into gear. So let me give you some ideas of what that could look like. Let's say, for instance, over the last week, you're working with urges. So urges and the urge worksheet are some things that I do with my clients. And I talk to you a lot about urges too. And an urge is a feeling like an urgent desire to want to do something, to want to eat something. It could be anything. But when we're talking about urges, we're talking about urges around food, that urgent desire to want to eat something. And usually those urges come when you're not hungry. Sometimes they come even when you are hungry. But let's just say, for example, in this past week, you know that you had this urge and you wanted to eat some brownies. For instance, let's just say a joy food, and they're in your house. Somebody made them for you. Somebody made them and brought them over, let's say, and you let them sit out and you didn't eat any. And you felt that urge to want to eat some. Maybe it wasn't a really strong urge, because how strong the urges are have a lot to do with how easy they are to work with or how hard they are to work with. And that's part of the work that I do when I'm working with clients. And I want you to act as if you're my client today or my student. And maybe you had this urge for that brownie that was brought over, that's sitting in your home, that other people are eating. And you've decided that you don't want it. And you've also decided that you can feel that you would like it. So you feel that urge. You felt that urge. And you gave it a number. So I always ask you that when you start to feel these urges, when you start to become aware of these urgent desires, when you feel them in your body, to rate them from a 0 to a -10. And -10 is the strongest urge, and those are going to be harder. But you can also have the urge, like for this brownie, that maybe wasn't really strong. It was like a -3. It looked good, you like them, but it was just a -3 pull. And therefore, you didn't eat it. In fact, you really didn't have any all week long because you decided you really just didn't want it. Not that you couldn't have it, but that you just didn't really want it. And you did the whole week like that. And then you went and you got on the scale, and the scale didn't do anything. So where is the win? If the scale says, sorry, not this week or not today, what do you do with your mind? Can you go back and remember about those brownies and those urges and how you were able to feel them and not fill them? That is a big win. And you know that if you can manage urges over time in this way, the scale will sooner or later reflect it. But if you get frustrated after doing something like that, you may have an urge to want to go eat immediately to reward yourself after not giving into the urges and feeling the urges just because of the scale. So be careful. And that is a perfect example of a win situation. You felt an urge, you let it go through you, and you didn't fill it with food. That has got to feel good. That is how you will make this the very last time that you ever have to lose weight again, is to be able to strengthen that kind of behavior and really be able to give yourself a big pat on the back for being able to do it, because you know there was a time when, number one, you may not have even been aware of it, or two, you just always gave into it. And now you're noticing that you can feel it and not fill it. So congratulations. And that's what I would say to yourself. And I'm going to do that again this week because I'm stronger. That's how I would be thinking, even though the scale didn't move. Doesn't mean the scale won't move. It just means it didn't. And how you work with that in your mind, that curiosity, is how did I win this week? If the scale's not going to say it, how did I? Okay, so first we talked about the possibility of feeling the urges. Here's another example. Let's say that you're eating dinner with your family and you have food on your plate and you're really aware of your hunger scale and you notice that you've come up to a +2 and there's still food left on your plate. And you notice and you remember me saying you can waste it, W-A-S-T-E, or you can waste it, W-A-I-S-T. Wear it on your waist or let it go. And in this moment, you could let it sit on your plate because you weren't hungry and let the food go. Even though other people were eating around you, maybe they were finishing their plates, maybe they were getting more, but you stayed in your own lane. You were very, very aware of what was going on for you, and you ate between the twos with food on your plate, and you know that there was a time when you didn't, couldn't, or wouldn't do that. Now that is a win, regardless of what the scale says. And we know that if you continue that kind of thinking, that kind of win, you have a much better chance of that scale going down, because it's that type of mind management that will make the scale go down. How we manage our mind, the behavior that we end up doing, the scale, what it ends up saying, they're all related and we have to manage it. So we talked about the idea of urges and that you learned how to feel them. Or let's say that there was food left on your plate and you didn't eat it because you weren't hungry anymore. Just like little kids, when they're not hungry anymore, they just stop eating. That's what you did. Doesn't it feel good? Aren't you proud of yourself? Pride, creating pride, is so much better than frustration. So you can let that frustration go through you and you can feel it. And then you can manage your mind and you can say, now, what did I do that I'm proud of this week? You can manage it, you can change it, and sometimes you still have to feel it. Here's another example of the behavior of something that could have happened that you may have may not noticed, but the scale didn't go down. And because you're listening to this podcast, your brain is now looking at the good behavior, the things that you did do this week, those wins. What about this? You went out with friends and everybody was ordering drinks and you just didn't want one. And the only reason you would order one or drink one is because you were worried about what your friends would think if you didn't drink. Are you one of those people? And we're all so different on how we manage our minds and what we think when we're eating with other people. But I certainly know from working with enough clients that this is one of the things that pop up, is that what will they think if I don't drink? So what happens, this is kind of a people-pleasing type of thing, is you're more concerned with pleasing them than pleasing you. And you don't want the drink and you know it. It's just not something that you enjoy as much as other things. Now, there are some people that are different and do enjoy it. And that's another story, but that's not what we're talking about here. In this week, what happened with you was that you didn't want it and you were with people that were drinking and you didn't have a drink and you were so proud of yourself because you did what was right for you. And you also noticed that nobody cared very much, which made you laugh. See, because you're looking back now and you're becoming curious about the wins you had, even if the scale didn't reflect it. Because that kind of a win of learning your own people pleasing and realizing where it hits you, and then realizing that pleasing yourself is more important, because you're going to live with yourself when you leave. You're not going to be with your friends. You're going to be with you. And when you can be with you and go, good job, sweetheart. Thanks for taking care of me. I really didn't want that. And then even notice that everybody's much more concerned about themselves than they are if you're drinking or not anyway, because that's usually the truth. But boy, I would call that a win, even if the scale didn't. And the last thing I just want you to think about is the scale. So you get on the scale and you notice that you didn't have any weight loss this week, which we've been talking about. But now the win in this is that you became curious about why the number didn't go down. and you didn't get furious or frustrated. And that felt so good and so exciting that you could catch it. Like you could notice the frustration coming in. You may have even let it go through you, but then you managed your mind right away. Oh my gosh. Now, if you do that more often, do you not think that that scale will reflect your behavior over time if you don't get frustrated by the scale and reward yourself with food? If you stop rewarding yourself with food, do you not think the scale might start going down? Oh, I think it would. So I want you to think about that this week, that regardless of what the scale does, and I'm not saying we're not using the scale as a tool, it's a very good tool for weight loss. But when it doesn't do what you want it to do, which it will not do all the time, in whatever journey you're on, you have to manage your mind. And I just gave you 4 different examples of how you can use wins that are not related to the scale and weight loss, including how to manage your mind around the scale when there is no weight loss. So I want you to really think about that this week. I want you to think about, you felt an urge, you felt it and you didn't feel it. Or you didn't eat all the food on your plate because you weren't hungry anymore and you were so aware that you didn't eat it because you know you used to. And it felt so good to see it. Or, maybe you're out with friends and people are ordering drinks or food and you just do what's right for you and you stay in your own lane and it feels so good to please yourself. And you learn how to manage the scale. Those 4 things can all be wins that will absolutely lead to weight loss over time. Because as long as you're curious about that scale, you can always find an answer for what you're looking for. Because your brain is amazing and it can do amazing things when you're not frustrated. When you're curious, it will help you. And I want you to use it this week, no matter what. And I want you to use the scale too. Don't stay away from the scale. Don't be afraid of the scale. Let the scale be a tool, but also test your mind management with the scale this week and see how many wins you had that had nothing to do with the number on the scale. And that is the way to permanent weight loss over time, in or out of menopause. All right, that's your homework for this week. I want you to be looking, and I want you to feel pride. And of course, I also want you to, no matter where you go or what you do, please, please, please be very, very kind to yourself. And I'll see you next week. Bye-bye. If you're loving my podcast and you would like some more information to be able to follow along with, then please go to drdebbutler.com/change, and you can get a free copy of my companion book that goes with this podcast that I refer to in many different episodes. That is drdebbutler.com/change, CHANGE.